Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
The WNBA just concluded its 2025 season, and we may not see a 2026 season. And ESPN, among others, especially the Hatelens, especially the Slows, all of those people that want to say Caitlin Clark is not the reason people are tuning into the WNBA, are all touting the ratings for this year's playoffs. But all that pay us what we deserve stuff, well, this may be a red flag when we actually dig a little deeper for the players in the upcoming CBA negotiations. Welcome back to the channel. Glad you're here. Thank you so much for all your support. Hope you're having a fantastic day, of course. Shout out to the 19, which is all of you who continue to support the channel as we close in on 14,800. Fingers crossed that happens sometime today. By the way, I already recorded this video and it turned out about halfway through the sound went out on me. So we are going to try it again. And of course, I know I will miss some great things that I said in that video because that is how it always works. Do me a favor, like, subscribe. You know the drill by now. I'll still remind you anyway, because that's what we have to do to survive on YouTube. So as you can see here, most watched WNBA postseason ever on ESPN networks. But there's a wild, wild thing in here. Wild. It's only up 5% year over year, which is interesting. But then that next line, 25 WNBA finals average 1.5 million viewers. Second most watched WNBA finals behind last season. And I know, I get it. A lot of people will say that is nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. However, we know that's not true. Now, we know that Caitlin Clark drew massive ratings in the 2 games she played last year. We know a big reason that the WNBA Finals is actually up year over year, even though it's only 5%, is because the Caitlin Clark fans were Fever fans and they supported the Indiana Fever, who played not 2 games this season, but 8 playoff games this season. And we know without those 8 playoff games, this is not, I repeat, not the most watched WNBA playoffs in history. And oh, what about those finals, you say? Well, that's pretty easy. First of all, the most watched finals game in 28 years, or I think most watched finals game 1.9 million. Yeah, there are a couple of reasons for that. Indiana fans, Caitlin Clark fans, they continued to watch. They tuned in for a couple of reasons. One, because, yeah, they wanted to support the league that Caitlin Clark plays in and that Caitlin Clark wants to see grow. And of course, there was also a little hate watching because there were 2 teams, the Caitlin Clark fans, 2 teams that Indiana Fever fans did not want to see in the playoffs, in the finals, I should say. It would be the Las Vegas Aces, led by Asia, I'm a racist, me too, Wilson, and the Phoenix Mercury, quite possibly a more unlikable team than the Las Vegas Aces. At least the Las Vegas Aces has Jackie Young, and I don't know a single Caitlin Clark fan that has anything negative to say about Jackie Young. She is, from everything I have seen and heard, a class act. Now, the Phoenix Mercury, on the other hand, not so much. And by the way, I will take this moment to apologize. I did not know any better at the time. When Satu Sabali got to Dallas last year, actually started playing, though she had been hurt. I said, hey, you know what? That's a player the Indiana Fever need to grab in the offseason. And I am now so glad I didn't, because I, like many of you, the more we see of Satu, well, the less impressed we are for game, but even more importantly, the less impressed we have been with her as a human being. Every time she opens her mouth, I like her less. Now, interestingly enough, she got a little sympathy from myself and others in some video clips from the finals, because we saw what she had to deal with that dynamic duo, Alyssa Thomas and Duana Bonner, and we'll get to them. So we've got Alyssa Thomas, the absolute thug rugby player in the WNBA, the epitome, the poster child for the it's a physical league, who could not make it in the WNBA without her ability to play dirty, without her ability to just knock people over. because she doesn't have the basketball skill to sustain a career. And then on top of that, she multiple times threw Caitlin Clark fans under the bus, lied about Caitlin Clark fans, talking about how they were yelling slurs at games, of which again, no proof, despite the fact that everybody has a phone or some type of audio recorder everywhere now, and she has never given any proof. She supported Angel Reese, said, I believe Angel Reese. I believe her because me too. Hey, different me too. See what I did there? And that turned out to be a complete and utter lie. The WNBA even did an investigation and found absolutely nothing. It was Alyssa Thomas after the playoffs last year and trying to get sympathy with Dejanay Carrington after what they did in the playoffs with Dejanay Carrington trying to blind Caitlin Clark. And oh, by the way, that coach was Stephanie White. And then we had, of course, the Dewana Bonner fiasco, where you cannot convince me at this point that Dewana Bonner didn't go to Indiana already knowing she was going to force herself out in order to get to the Phoenix Mercury once they had enough cap space, once enough season went by. And you can't convince me then that that being the case, that she didn't talk about that with Alyssa Thomas. That was the plan. And then she goes and plays victim. And then she goes and whines about Indiana and the booing. And if you saw my Aerial Powers video from the other day, we all know this Indiana Fever team, Sans, even without Caitlin Clark playing, just the team together and what they did, they are one of those very rare teams where you can't help for root for them because of the way they pull together, because of the way they connect off the court and the way they support one another and the way the fans see and appreciate that. And that is a rare thing in sports. And it is so much fun to be a part of and so much fun to watch. It puts the lie to what Dewana Bonner was trying to allude to and say about the Indiana Fever as if it was some toxic locker room with a bunch of hateful people in it that didn't get along. And that was not true. Sophie Cunningham called her on that. Dewana Bonner ditched town in the middle of the night, didn't say anything to any of the players. And we know that whole thing. She got people to be sympathetic to her by making it seem like, oh, maybe there was a family health issue or something, and people were praying for her, help everything was going okay. And then making it out like she's a victim when the fans booed her as they should. And then, of course, you even add in Kalia Copper, who has never, every time I see her interviewed or speak, I think she is the rudest, most entitled, most awful human being I've ever come across. She was even nasty to Holly Rowe when Holly Rowe was, I think it was one of those quick halftime interviews. And then, of course, she called the Indiana Fever fans, I forget the word. It was the D word. I mean, it was disgusting, despicable, something like that. When there's no place for that in the game. They shouldn't have to put up with that with the fans booing Dewana Bonner, which is absolutely ridiculous, of course. So you had 1.9 million, a lot of those fans tuning in because they were hate watching that game. And that's why it fell off a cliff down to like 1.3 million the next couple of games and ended up being less than last year. And even so, all those fans watching were absolutely the extra fans, I would say, Caitlin Clark fans. And now here's the thing. This is ammunition for the WNBA, not the players. This is ammunition for the WNBA because the players can't say, pay us what we deserve when this year's finals were not able to draw last year as much as last year's finals. And I add one other thing to that. It's even worse than that because this year's finals included the expanded ratings, the expanded data gathering by Nielsen, which pumps up the ratings, inflates the ratings. So it's even worse than when you first glance at it because this year had a huge advantage over last year and they still could not draw more than they did in 2024. Off season is going to be interesting, folks. We got the CBA in the negotiations. We've got almost everybody in the league, at least the veterans, being free agents. We've got expansion drafts, so people are going to have to leave players unprotected. Along with the free agent, it is going to be an absolute interesting nightmare. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Appreciate you checking out the video. As always, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's hit that incredible 15,000 number, and I will talk to you later.